of Government Affairs for the National Taxpayers Union, Tommy Aiello. Tommy, great to see you. Thank you so much for your time today. All right, so Hannah just laid out, arguments just wrapped up after about 3 hours. You have said that this should be an easy case for the justices. So are you surprised that this case came before the Supreme Court?
No, I'm not surprised. I mean, this should be an open and shut case for the Supreme Court. The president's clearly exceeded his authority under this act. You know, he's trying to find taxing authority that simply doesn't exist in the law. And if you look at the law and the statute that's being debated today, it gives the president a lot of authority, but it doesn't give him the authority to tax or tariff. So, you know, we are expecting a skeptical Supreme Court, and I think that's what we received today.
All right, so you're saying expecting skeptical. However, so we know that the main question looming over this case is whether President Trump can use those emergency powers to justify the tariffs. I'd like to hear some more from what we heard from Trump's Solicitor General in arguing the administration's case today.
The president has broad inherent authority to address foreign situations, foreign affairs, foreign policy, including foreign and rising emergencies. I want to make a very important distinction here. We don't contend that what's being exercised here is the power to tax. It's the power to regulate foreign commerce. These are regulatory tariffs. They are not revenue-raising tariffs.
All right, so Tommy, you know, we have seen lower courts reject this premise time and time again. That's why we are here. But do you think this conservative majority court could see things differently?
I do. You know, they really hammered home that this is a regulatory tariff. It's a taxing tariff. Look, if you really extrapolate the word regulate and turn it into a tax, the Congress has delegated so much authority to the president when it comes to regulation. So they could regulate greenhouse gas emissions and securities. That doesn't give them the ability to regulate or tariff or tax securities or greenhouse gases. So again, if the president wants the authority to tariff and impose taxes on imports, he should ask the Congress, which is where the Article I power to tax and tariff imports comes from, not this law. So no matter how many times the president wants to try and find taxing authority in this specific version of the statute, it just simply doesn't exist. And I think that's what the Supreme Court is skeptical of.
All right, so Tommy, Oregon's Attorney General is leading this coalition of Democratic states. Prior to this, said that this was the first time in more than a decade that Oregon will even argue a case before the high court. I mean, more than a decade, that is a long time. Do you think that could somehow factor into how this is ultimately decided?
I do. And I think if you look at the tariffs right now, the president wants the tariffs to help increase American manufacturing. That's just not the case. What we've seen over the past year and every single month of the president's second term is a decline in American manufacturing jobs. So we think there needs to be a complete reset in how we approach our trade policy. We think if we lower tariffs, if we lower these non-trade barriers on the Atlantic and the Pacific, we do think we could see a rise in employment, a rise in manufacturing jobs, and of course, a certainty that our allies really need if they want to consider the United States a reliable trading partner.
All right, so we heard from Hannah, during her report there. When do you expect that we'll get a ruling? And if, the court does rule against the president, how soon would those tariffs potentially be rolled back?
It could be as soon as the end of this month or as soon as the end of the year. And I think it would be very soon after that the tariffs are rolled back. Now, one thing that I don't think people are talking enough about is if the tariffs are rolled back, does that mean these tariff refunds have to be given back to American businesses and American consumers? That could be a huge windfall for the American economy if the government has to refund this money. That means the businesses could reinvest that in their workers, deliver shareholder value, or invest in the United States in these manufacturing plants. So that really is the biggest question mark after the fact if the court decides to rule against the president.
Yeah, and then how that would actually be rolled out, too. All right, we will see what happens. Tommy Aiello, thank you so much.